better not put my hands in my pocket.
So we're standing behind him?
Better not cross my arms, otherwise I look too aggressive.
Nice and close together and come right up to the microphone, please. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so today's day 14 after Darren left a rep bivvy, and today Amalgamated Helicopters at about 9:30 was conducting an aerial sweep through a particularly nasty piece of a ret stream in the headwaters, and they located a body below a waterfall, and we're confident that that is Darren Myers. It's been a long 14 days for all of us, including the family and the searchers who have been involved. I think there's been nearly 3,000 hours of volunteer time invested into this, along with police and RNZAF. It's not the outcome that we wanted, but at least we've through perseverance, and we've finally at least got an outcome.
Can you explain the geography again of what it was like, how he was discovered?
Okay, he's been found at around about the 1,000 metre level, and in the same in the headwaters of the same creek where a chocolate wrapper was found on Saturday, and that creek is directly down below a ret bivvy hut. It's not in the direction of travel that we would have been expecting him to take to get to Tarn Ridge Hut along the northern crossing. So clearly there's been a geographical problem, and then that's been followed up with a misadventure problem. We believe that he has had a fall, and we believe that what has happened very, very suddenly, and it hasn't been a prolonged event. I think it has happened on the Thursday, and when this event has happened, there's, you know, it's happened immediately. There's been no, I don't think he suffered at all. It's been a very sudden event that's caused him to die.
And how did you discover it today? Was it?
Okay, so we've been battling the conditions up there, the weather and the terrain for a very long time. Where he was found, a search team got within 50 metres of that location, but had to turn around because it was just too dangerous for them to continue. We've had a search team member break his leg in that creek during this search. So it was a portion of this ret stream that certainly the helicopter pilot was interested in, and he elected to go in and research it. It had been searched a number of times from the air. We believe Darren has been underneath up to half a metre of snow at some stages during this search activity. So it was as a result of a slower and more careful search up through that creek this morning, in much better flying conditions. There hasn't been a lot of wind here today, and the visibility was good. And so it's just, I guess, through the very good work of Amalgamated Helicopters that have managed to give us this result today.
So the fall down the waterfall, is that quite a drop?
It is. Once again, we know that he was found at the bottom of about a 6 metre waterfall, and it's a direct fall. But at this stage, we don't know with any certainty whether he's travelled over that waterfall from an event up above it, or the event has happened around that waterfall. He could have suffered some kind of misadventure further up, and then perhaps been pushed down there by the stream itself and over that waterfall. But certainly being found at that location, you know, it suggests that that's probably where it's happened. If it hasn't happened there, then it's potentially happened upstream from there, but probably no great distance upstream from there.
Was he found in your initial search area, or the?
Yes, he's been found in the area where all of the intensive search activity has been taking place, but in one of the most hazardous parts of that terrain. There's been a lot of places up there that we simply haven't been able to get to, and this has certainly been one of them. But as I've said, we've been slowly trying to pick these areas off. To some degree, it's been favourable for us to find him because we found him on a what we'd call a linear feature, and a linear feature can either be a ridge line or a stream bed. Because if he'd been in one of the more expansive faces of scrub and leatherwood, we may have never found him. And it is common for people who are trying to escape bad weather up high to go down low, and then eventually they'll end up in a creek, which is a linear feature, and they try to use that creek system to get down lower, and I think that's probably what he was trying to do when this misadventure, which has potentially caused his death, has taken place.
So he didn't suffer at all? You think it was crap?
That I don't think so. Yeah, I've done a hot debrief with the staff that attended the scene, and everything suggests that he's died very suddenly.
What does that mean for you, Duncan? Is that some relief that he didn't suffer for the many days that the search has been going?
Yeah, that's been quite quickly. One of the hardest things we've had to bear with is the fact that he's up there and alive and waving at a helicopter potentially and not being seen and potentially in a lot of pain or a lot of distress while he's up there. And then to know that he's not been able to respond for the last few days was actually really good relief for us.
How are you holding up?
We're extremely upset. My wife and Darren's wife Kim are very upset at the moment. So that's why I'm out here talking to you guys rather than them. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how big your search area was? You've had really difficult situation with the weather. You couldn't have got to him any earlier.
Perhaps I'll introduce Murray Johnson, he's the chairman for Wairarapa Search and Rescue. He's sort of also had a lot of involvement in the management of the actual operational part of the search, and is potentially in a better position to talk to that as part of his role. So.
Yeah, perhaps the best example of that is on the second day of the search. The first Tuesday, we tasked a team to search a Rett stream because it was potentially a hot area for us. That team was beaten back by rainwater and also the snow melting off the tops. We've had 4 or 5 teams in that water catchment over the last week, and searching various parts of the stream as far as they possibly could. The last team that we put in there was a team from Taranaki who are quite used to that rugged sort of country. As the size of the search area goes, it's changed considerably. Initially we had to cover all of his route, which is a huge area from Levin to Masterton, because we didn't know at what part of that route he may have come to grief. But as the search has gone on, we've been able to narrow it down to the area immediately around a Rett hut, a Rett bivvy, and so we've been able to intensify it in that area.
Have you managed to get him out of there? Where to?
Okay, so this is now a sudden death event, and it'll be reported through to the coroner. So it's now a coroner's case. So and we will investigate the death on behalf of the coroner. Obviously, already conducted a lot of investigations, but the coroner always takes an interest in mountain deaths and mountain safety, and we will report it as it is. The search activity that was generated to try and find Mr. Myers will all be laid out, and I guess if the coroner's got any suggestions, that will be for him to to talk about.
So he's in hospital.
Yes, yes, he's at the Masterton Hospital mortuary.
And when can he be given back to the family?
Once again, the coroner makes an order to release the body back to the family, but normally that's within 48 hours. Normally, under most circumstances, it's within 48 hours.
What's happening up at the scene now?
Okay, so when the helicopter pilot reported having found a body, we flew in a police forensic photographer to the scene. A detective who was also on the police SAR squad was flown into the scene along with another SAR member who's been dealing with the family throughout this event, and so we did a forensic photography and did the recovery. The recovery it had to be done on a long line just to get staff in there. You could not land a helicopter there. So by that I mean that's a cable attached to the bottom of the helicopter where we had to lift staff into the scene, and Darren was obviously recovered in a stretcher in the same format. He had to be carried out underneath the helicopter because it was just impossible to land an aircraft there. So he's at about that 1,000-metre level, which is in that scrub belt just below the before you start to get into mountain beach and forest. So he's been up high and through all that really cold weather that came through since that Thursday. The high winds, the -14, the half a metre of snow, all of that has been certainly at its worst up around where he's been. But as I've said to you, I think the event happened the day that he left a rep bivvy. It happened very suddenly, and I don't think he suffered at all.
What's your message to people wanting to tramp? Are you putting any ban, or are you preventing people from tramping in that area?
No, I will be speaking to our iwi liaison officer about the death up there, and it may be that there is a blessing of some sort that will take place, but it's not really a food catchment waterway. I guess the only message that I've got to people is when you're undertaking a journey like this, there's always going to be risk associated to it. In this event, even if Darren had been carrying something like a locator beacon, it may not have made any difference. If you've taken a traumatic fall, you may not have even had the opportunity to turn a locator beacon on. So in his case, it may not have made any difference. But a $325 locator beacon it's $32 worth of insurance for 10 years for the battery life. So if you're solo tramping or doing expedition stuff like this, you need to first of all look after yourself as your first.
What sort of man was Darren? Can you explain to me the type of guy he was, his personality?
Well,
family man?
Darren was a very ambitious guy. He did lots of tramping, lots of cycling. He was very keen on the outdoors. Having recently migrated around New Zealand and see some of New Zealand's beautiful countryside, and that's what he was doing when he
had he been up here before?
No, this is his first visit to Tararua, but he's done some tramping further north in the Ruapehu area, so he was used to New Zealand's weather conditions. So.
And he knew the types of environments he was getting himself into.
Oh, yes, he's well aware of what can happen in those environments, and he was very well prepared with all the right sort of sleeping bags and tents and things like that. But on this occasion, he didn't get to use them because he ended up with an event.
What's the plan now for you and your family?
Well, we're just taking it one step at a time. We've got a lot of thinking to do and a little bit of planning to do to try and figure out where we're going next. Darren's based in Wellington, so we'll be in Wellington, and we'll be looking at having some sort of ceremony in Wellington, we think. So,
Maybe just something on the efforts of the volunteers. I know you've put in.
You've had a big team, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well,
Can I
yeah,
say,
Murray.
or Murray, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, certainly on behalf of Wairapa Star, I'd just like to acknowledge not only our own volunteers who have put in a huge number of hours, but also our neighbours who responded so promptly and willingly. We've had searches here from Wellington, Horowhenua, Manawatu, Taranaki, Hawke's Bay, and we certainly couldn't have coped with this event on our own. We don't have sufficient volunteers for a prolonged search of this nature, and it's not only the people in the field, the Brains Trust back here in the search base. We've been able to rotate on a daily or bi-daily basis so that new thoughts and new approaches are going into it all the time. So yeah, just an acknowledgement. Oh, and also an acknowledgement of the people that have dropped off food. We've had food come from cafes, from private individuals, all sorts of people have just sent. When you know that there's somebody out there thinking about what's going on, yeah, so that's been excellent.
And from
So
a hard search, hasn't it? But the weather's been against you for much of it.
we've had a lot of the days when we could only realistically do 2 or 3 hours work in between the storms and the high winds, and yeah, so it has been a frustrating search, knowing that we were probably in the right place but just not being able to get to exactly the right areas in the right place. We found the haystack, but it took a long time to find the needle.
So sorry we were late. We were over at the
That's all right.
airport part and very apologetic.
Happy to-
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm happy to give you a bit more time to cut in again from the start if you want.
I think Duncan might have just wanted to finish off that